Hi everyone! So I did actually record this video, but for some reason it didn't have sound on it. So I'm going to have to voice over the tutorial. So bear with me as I do that. So hi everyone! So today I want to show you this card. Now I originally made this card in a live stream. I did it as a 5x7. So as you can see, it's a pop-up, a tiered pop-up step card. The papers I used was from my Rose Garden kit. So this is the paper pad, which I'm trying to get on Amazon, but at the time of filming, Amazon are not being very helpful, so I haven't been able to get it onto Amazon as a paper pad yet. However, you can get this as a digital kit. So there's an 8.5 by 8.5, which I'm not going to show you because obviously it's not available yet. So I'm going to show you the A4 because then it's more, closer to what you're going to get in the digital kit. So you've got a whole sheet of sentiments. Then on this next page, you've got a whole sheet of like ephemera, like roses you can cut out. And then you've got all these patterns. Obviously, you won't have the colours on the other sides, but it just gives you an idea of what the patterns look like kind of in real life. Also, bear in mind that obviously printing these off on a printer, things will turn out slightly different colour-wise, depending on your ink, and your paper and everything. But it just gives you an idea of what it looks like. This digital kit is available on DRK Crafts and also on Ko-fi. It's not available on Etsy. They charge a bit too much for fees, so that is why I'm only doing it on Ko-fi and DRK. So it folds flat to fit in an envelope for a 6x6 card. As you can see, it folds out like that. This is the side profile for it. So let's get into it. So for this card, you are going to need one piece of base card that is 6 inches by 12 inches, and on this card you're just going to score it in half at 6 inches. So basically you're making a 6x6 card blank. So if you have a 6x6 card blank that's the right colour, you can go ahead and use that. If not, you just need a 6x12 and score it in half to get a 6x6 card blank. Next up, you need a piece of base card that is 5.5 inches by 6 inches, and on this you're going to score along the short edge at 1 inch, 2.5, 3.5 and 5. So these measurements are exactly the same as what you would do for a 5x7. It's just that on the 5x7 card, your piece, your first step is 5.5 by 7 inches, not by 6 inches. Next up, you need a piece of base card that is 3.5 by 5. And on this piece of base card, you're going to score it at 1 inches, 2 inches and 3 inches. Then next up you have another piece, and this is 2.5 inches by 4 inches, and on this one you're going to score at 1/2 inch, 1.5 inches and 2 inches. So next up you just need to mountain fold all of your folds. Okay, so once you've folded all your pieces, this piece here, you want to fold it round. You're actually going to make a little box. So as you can see, your little 1/2 inch tab is going at the back, and you're doing it like the way that I'm showing it on the screen. Now you want your widest bit, which you can see now, the top view, that's the top, and then the piece that is 1 inch high goes at the front. So if I open that up like that, you'll see that, as I said, the 1/2 inch tab is at the top, and that bottom section is literally going to be like at the back. So this 1/2 inch here, this folds round, and you can stick it in front of that other piece, but I'm going to stick mine behind, because then when you've got it, as you can see, you're then not going to see the tab. So I'm going to go ahead and add some tape, some red tape on the inside of the 1/2 inch tab, and then we are going to stick it in a certain way onto the back of that other section that you can see. So as you can see, I've put red tape on the inside there, and as you can see, it's going to fold round and stick at the back there. That's the front, that's the bottom, that's the top. This bit here is going to stick behind, and it's going to fold up like that. And it's important that you do this. I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to take the backing off the back of that tape, And then with it just out of the way, I'm just going to pull that over like that and then stick it down and just pull the rest of that backing out, stick it flat. And then that bit where the tab is now going to be the back of your step, your bottom step. So as you can see, you've created like a little box. So that step will stick on the bottom of your card as shown, making sure you've got a top folding card. But before we stick it down, we need to go ahead and add the pattern paper onto the front of the card blank. So this front piece here needs to be 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. If you want to use a matte piece as well, then obviously your mat needs to be 5 3/4 by 5 3/4, and your pattern will be 5 1/2 by 5 1/2. But I've decided that it ends up being quite thick if you end up putting on mats and patterns. So I'm just using pattern, and this paper here is only 100 GSM, so it's really good for this. It means you end up with not a very bulky card. You can have a good base of card, good weight of base card, and then you can go for a thinner layer like this, and then it just means you're not going to end up with a very chunky card. So this card that I've made I reckon will probably fit for UK post, even though it's quite chunky. It's quite a lot of layers. It folds down quite flat. So I've stuck that on the front there, and then what we need to do now is cover the steps. Obviously inside you've got space to write. If you want to put a white piece in there, you can. That would just need to be 5 3/4 by 5 3/4 if you're not doing mats. So on this step, you just need to go ahead and cover it. So we're going to need a piece on the front and a piece on the top. So the piece that goes on the front measures, I'm just writing on here, front and top, just so I don't get in a muddle. The piece that goes on the front of your box needs to be 3/4 by 5 3/4, and the piece that goes on the top is 1 1/4 by 5 3/4. So I'm going to go ahead now and stick those down. Okay, so that's what it looks like when you've finished doing your steps. So now we need to go ahead and stick this onto the bottom of our card. So if I turn this round, you'll see here where the tab is hidden, that's the bit we need to glue. Now, I would normally use wet glue because it gives you wiggle room. However, because you've got that tab there and it's sort of uneven, I'm going to go ahead and use red tape, because then I know it's definitely going to stick. We're not going to have bits that are stuck on bits that aren't, and it just makes life a bit easier. Right, so I'm going to take my card, make sure it's top folding, and then I'm going to line up the step with it folded up the way you can see, so that your sticky bit is actually at the bottom of your, bottom of your section. And you're going to line it up along the bottom and obviously along the left and the right, make sure nothing sticks out. And then we're just going to stick this down. Okay, so once you've done that, you pull your step forward, you should end up with that kind of cross section. Now, if you wanted to, you could just leave your card like this and just have it like that if you want to. But obviously I'm going to go ahead and add 2 more steps onto it. So we're going to take this middle step here and the top one. We'll start with the middle one. Now these you could go higher if you want to, but I've just kept the same dimensions I had for the 5 by 7. Just means you've got more space above, that's all. But this one's going to sit just on top of that second step. And mine, as I said, mine is only 1 inch high, these steps. You just need to make sure that when you fold it down flat, that your steps don't go above that top section. So on this one, you're not actually going to make a box. So I'm just going to write on. You only need the 2 middle sections. So this is the front and there's the top. And then we're going to go ahead and stick the base down. Before we do that, we're going to put our pattern pieces on it. So our pattern pieces, well, you need 2 pieces in total because they're both equal, that are 3/4 by 4 3/4. And that will serve for the front and the top because both are equal sizes. Right, so once you've stuck your pattern pieces down, we now need to go ahead and stick it down. So we're going to add some glue, and I'm going to use wet glue this time, just because I need a bit of wiggle room. So on this bottom section here, that you can see, I'm going to add some wet glue onto here. And then you do need to make sure that when you put this on, that the section below, if you've used wet glue, is dry. Because otherwise, when you try and stick that in, it could end up dipping in between the previous box and the back of the card. So once you put glue on, you're going to go ahead and line that edge up and then push up that step so it sticks onto the underside of your bottom step. You need to make sure it's central left and right as well. And I wouldn't move it too soon after if you're using wet glue, because it might move. Just make sure it's right up against the card front and sort of right in that section there. So you've got no gaps. You don't want any gaps in there. Then what you want to do is we're going to go ahead and add glue or red tape onto that top tab. And you see where I'm folding it in half there, in between the two pattern sections. That whole section is going to fold over. So I'm actually going to use wet glue here because I find it a bit easier. So I'm going to put some glue on this tab section here. And then we're going to fold it along this middle line here in between the two patterns. Fold it over and then stick it down and make sure you push everything upwards so that then it all sticks. And then this is the side profile that you get. So as you can see, I'm going to be very careful because I've just glued it. So if I just bend that down slightly, you get like two boxes going upwards. So that middle box I've just stuck is kind of square. You have got that 1/2 inch tab, which you can see. If you want to make it a little bit longer so you don't see the pattern, you can. You could also make it shorter so it's less visible if you want to. It's really up to you, but I'm trying to cut down on the bulk. So next up, we're going to go for this little step, which goes on the top. That's what it looks like from the side. So that's your base. And then you've got your front section. So the middle two, you've got front here. I'm going to put an F and a T for the top, just so I know which one's which. And then we can go ahead and put our pattern paper on. So for the front, you need a piece that is 3/4 by 3 3/4. And then for the top, you don't have to do the top if you don't want to, because it is very skinny. But the top piece measures 1/4 by 3 3/4. And as I said, you don't have to do that top one if you don't want to, but I just like the look of the pattern. So I'm going to go ahead now and stick these down. Okay, so now we've done this top piece, we're going to go ahead and add some glue on that bottom tab. Again, you can use red tape if you want to. And then we're going to stick it to the top of the tab we've just stuck in, the box we've just stuck in. So we're going to take that little box and then we're going to put it in again. Just make sure that bottom layer is stuck before you go and add the next layer in. So this goes in again on top, slide it right down so that cut edge marries up with the top of the previous step and right in that corner between the front of the card as well. And then you want to press everything up like you did before and stick it down. And once you're sure that's pretty much dry, you're then going to do what you did before and add some red tape or some glue on that little 1/2 inch tab. And then you're going to fold it along that little score line again in between the two pattern pieces like we did last time. And then we're going to fold along that crease line, fold it down, and then press the whole thing up again and just stick it down and make sure it's properly stuck before we let go. If you let it go too soon, then what can happen is it will move. Okay, so there you go. You've got all 3 layers stuck down now. So if I turn it sideways, you can see what it looks like from the side. So you've got like a little stage almost. So then you can just go ahead and embellish it. Now, just make sure, obviously, if you want to change the heights of those steps, you can, or you can change the depths of it. But just make sure you don't go too far towards the top. So obviously on the one I had, I used a 5x7, so I've only got an inch at the top there extra. This is a 6x6. I want to go ahead and use this greeting, this happy birthday, but if I put it on the top step, then when you fold everything down, the top of the happy birthday will go over the top of the card footprint, as it were. So I'm just going to go ahead now, stick down the sentiment, and add some little flower cut, little roses and whatever. I think I'm going to put that on that middle step, the happy birthday. I think that looks best. And then I'll just add some flowers randomly around. So I'm going to go ahead now and decorate it up. Now, one thing that I did forget as I'm sticking these down, you can watch me sticking everything down, was that little tiny rose. You see me put it at the top of the sentiment. Now, as you'll see in a minute, it actually sticks too high. So I've put that above the sentiment. So now here's the finished, everything stuck down. And as you can see, it looks quite nice. It's got a nice little step, and that's the side profile. Obviously my sentiment's kind of hidden that top step a little bit. It's kind of in the way, but it's fine because I've managed to put the other rose on it, which kind of adds a 3D look to it. So, you know, you could really just play around, maybe use a smaller sentiment or something. But then when you fold it up, and you fold it flat, you can see there, the little rose at the top there is just a little bit too high. So thankfully I used wet glue for that. So I'm just able to squidge it down because it wasn't quite dry, and just make sure that that whole section doesn't go above the top of your, you know, your card blank, your footprint as it were. But yeah, so there you go. So there's the finished card. I really like that. Probably need to put something in the middle of it just as a sentiment. But it folds flat, as you can see. It's quite flat. Even though I've got all those boxes in there, it's quite flat, and that will fit in an envelope for a 6x6 card. So there you go. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial today. Please don't forget to go and check out this digital kit over on DRK Crafts or on Ko-fi. I'm planning to try and get the Amazon kits available soon. So this was actually taken from my 5x7 measurement. So if you want to do a 5x7, you can either watch the live stream back or just literally use the same measurements I've used for this card. So I've just added a little bit extra. I've taken an inch off the width. So obviously all the measurements I had for the boxes were 7 inches long, but this one is 6 inches long. So the bottom step is exactly the same. All the measurements are the same. It's just that instead of it being 6 inches wide, it's 7 inches wide for the 5x7. But all the score lines are the same. You fold on the same sides, etc. So it's literally the same. I will put all the measurements for the 5x7 in the description below, so you will be able to see. But yeah, it's quite a nice card, as you can see. It looks good. You've got a nice bit of depth to it. I just think there's lots you could do with this card. There really is. You could have all sorts of things on there. But I hope you enjoyed today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. Leave a comment down below, and we'll see you next time. Bye!